Spinning and waiting.
All right.
All right. We are officially live to our StarSeed Alliance discussion with everybody. Here we go. We'll go ahead and take the banner down. Um,
There we
hello.
go. Hi. All right.
So,
Hello, everyone. Many we got here in the show.
oh, right. Yeah. This one's been, I've had a few people ask. So I think it's a good thing that we're going to do this discussion, like, especially for people who maybe aren't familiar with the Starseed Alliance, like who they are, what to expect, what could, let's start with that. Like, what is the Starseed Alliance for anybody that's brand new and joining in?
All All right. Well, I would say that it's the Starseed Alliance. It's all about the different star beings, meaning other races, other human beings, or other, as we call, extraterrestrials out in the universe that are assisting us in our evolution, in our growth. And what I had thought of when just to kind of give people an idea was to kind of even give a little explanation on how I got started with that because
Hmm.
a lot of people are tuned into working with angels and working with connecting with their spirit guides and other beings of that we're more familiar with here on Earth. So it's the same concept when you're working with star beings because what it is that you end up finding that there's still other beings or other entities that are also in the lights that are assisting us. So I find that there's different from different constellations. Now maybe not in all constellations, but it is a big universe, so it just depends on what you're drawn, what you're attracted to. There are familiar ones that are out, and there's some that we're still discovering throughout the day. So I see that. Hello everyone. So um, I find that there are beings that are they were here before, left and came, and either came back or were still part of in some ways. So I guess the only way to explain it in my idea, in my mind, is when I started connecting with them. Because to me, when I started seeing things in regards to, and I'm not even going to start from the beginning, but I'll say at least as far as, like, for example, the Pleiadians. Okay, I've through knowledge and reading books and studying, you find that you have different storylines, but they all kind of fit in the same kind of group. So for me, Pleiadians are beings that were already on Earth and left, kind of like in Atlantis, how a lot of people did ascend, and others fell in the symbolic of the ocean. So they've left and they've came back to the Earth keepers of this planet. So that's why we have contact with them. So those are the most familiar ones, at least to most people, because they look humanoid, and they are humanoid, except they're more evolved and advanced. So with this workshop that we're going to be teaching next week, it's really about connecting with specific ones, whatever you're aligned with, and how it's connected to you through your heritage, through your roots, through your spiritual faith and belief. So that's what it's all about. So that's a start. I see there's some questions there. Everybody said hello, hello.
Hi. Um, so, anybody, if you're not familiar with them and
Cheers.
have questions,
Mhm.
go ahead and type it in the comments. Uh,
Yeah, there's some questions.
Ernesto, you'll answer them live for us. So, I mean, what are some of the other, like, besides the Palladians, who else are
Well,
you used to hearing about?
okay, so for me, when I started connecting with specific beings, which plants were the, kind of the start, I found that, in my storyline, anyways, I started connecting with the Syrians, which are from the Sirius star, and there's certain planets, at least to my knowledge, and other people that are aware that there are beings there, and usually they're called the cat beings. Now, there is a merge from these Syrians that are also a breed of Lyrians as well. So that goes into a whole nother category. But if I just kind of stick to, the Syrians, I find that some of them are actually kind of, they look almost humanoid, but almost Cabian at the same time. And they have their own mission. Like, I find that they're more warrior like. If you think of cats, they can get very feisty, so you got beings that are very strong, very protective, but very helpful. And I really believe in my own faith that that's why we have certain animals in our world today. And I believe that cats are a offspring of them here on Earth. So they're our little guardians. That we have. In the physical world. Also, too, another one would be the Arcturians, and that one's going to be a little bit more different. I see a question here, though. Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, they are usually the ones that are involved. I would say fifth and up would be based on your connection to them. Like, because I find that some of them they're between five and even like 5 and 7, 5, 6, and 7. So there's not a better than the other. You have to look at what their assistance is. Like, they all help with our spiritual evolution. I know that Pleiadians like to help us with a lot of our chakra clearings. Whereas Arcturians, which I want to speak about, is more, I want to say in a way more evolved, but it's because they're in seventh and higher dimensions, and you have to kind of like look into that and study and meditate on that. But you'll find the difference in how your experiences are once you start connecting with them. What feels more stronger to you, or what feels more subtle, And I find with the Arcturians, they're very clear, but they're very they can kind of sneak up on you in a calm way too. And whereas for me, Syrians are just blatantly in your face. Like they're here, I feel them, I sense their energy, or I'm getting a download. So it really depends on your evolve and your growth of your spirituality. So yeah. There are some other groups that and I'll just put this as a sideline. There are lower groups that we hear about. I try not to focus too much on those. They're grays, or they're reptilians, or whatever. Sometimes those are also corrupted beings. But we also got to remember the Creator created all things. So they're also in their evolutional growth as well as we are here on 3D Earth, as we're, supposedly ascending, so as we're working on our growth. So they also have their own specific things. Now, I won't really touch base too much on that, but I'm just putting it out there that do your research and really think about, see what feels it. Because, there might be like a being that would be like a Zeta, for example, that are kind of part of the grays in a sense. And they're actually not that bad. There's a group that's negative, the group that's positive, and those that are positive are trying to find a way to expand their race, but they have their own specific issue, which that's a whole nother ball game, But that's kind of like what I'm saying. You might get an actual being that you may hear this negative, it's not really a negative, extraterrestrial. So yeah. Any questions so far?
Not yet, though. Elizabeth noticed. You can see him, my cat, sitting here behind me. He's my little pillow.
Oh, there you go.
It's a way of being a part of it without not being a part of it.
Yeah. I find like, for this workshop, that we're going to do, because, I've done several at the store. I was looking at, and I know we've posted it up, it is to really work in the next level, so you don't have to be someone that's already taken a class. You can also be a beginner because it's for everyone to whoever needs to catch up will catch up on that day because it's all about, I'm going to not just speak more in details about it. I want to I want to do a meditation. So if anybody want to meditate when we do our Zoom, please be here for this because I'm going to do also a visualization in regards to the star beings and how you can connect with it, but also to align with where you feel like you might be connected to several, and how it resonates with you in the now, so
Mm.
that's going to be important. Yeah,
So
it's
even
going to
so,
be in Zoom for this.
so somebody like Sandy, she's very brand new. She would be comfortable and be able to jump in and
Yes.
class with you.
Yes, yeah. And I always tell people, like always put your cocoon of light up and just say I allow to receive only positive because I'm going to do an activation with that too. So this is also going to help whether it's someone's ahead or someone that's just new. It will open their energies just as the same, And then I'm going to guide everybody on how to learn how to open themselves even more. Um, yeah, another thing that I will point out with this is that when you start to connect, I want people not to be afraid. That's the thing. A lot of people say, "Oh, geez, I'm gonna get abducted," and and all these other crazy things. I mean, it's in history. It's happens. It's out there. I'm not leading you guys to get sent out in a ship and disappear. I mean, I would like to go, somewhere and visit and
Please
get a
come get me.
yes, pick you on the way there, but it's about more getting affiliated with that root side of you. See, because this is the thing. There are people that had other lifetimes where they lived in other planets, in other constellations, and other star, universes. So that's what makes someone so tuned in to this kind of energy. It's almost like you're remembering who you are and who you were, at the same time. So that's what this is going to be, about.
Right.
Class will be next Friday, I believe that is. Is that correct? Do we have that date? That Sandy Owens is asking.
Yeah, I'll confirm that real quick. But Miguel, wants to know how this impacts your life lessons.
Asking questions now, huh? I would say for me, my thing, if I go in the beginning stages, I would say, I started connecting more with the commander energy, one of the star commanders that I felt comfortable as little, but I didn't really knew too much or recognize, at first. So, along the way, what I found how, how did it impact me was when they got a return. Let's put it this way: I got a return of that star commander, and that was when was it? I think that might have been in 2008 or nine. I want to say maybe even 2009. And so when that happened, it made me return to learning and getting more involved. And so what I found is that it really kind of elevated me into openness to the earth. We a lot of us say we don't want to be here on earth, and I still say that from time to time because we're human when we see the chaos and the craziness that goes on in our world. But connecting with the stars is also to help you to connect with that self that feels alone. It helps you to connect with understanding why you're here and your purpose and mission. So that's what I find for me, at least one of the few things that has helped impact my life to make a change and a difference. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's my experience.
Now, would you be able to consider, like, say, if you got into touch after taking your class with one of the star beings, would they be considered the same thing as like a spirit guide, or is that like a different being, different level?
Okay, actually, I would still say it would be. I mean, it will be definitely a whole nother level because and I hate to say I don't want to ever say diminish one or the other, spirit or ET related energies, but I'm just finding that I'm calling it frequencies. So the spirit world has a certain frequency when you're connected, or the guides that you have had contracts, which is in a whole nother frequency. Spirit guides and spirits that are dead that you knew in this life are two different things. So, but when we look at, for me, the extraterrestrial kind of vibration, I find it to be a whole nother vibration. In my opinion, I would say a little higher. Just like you
Mhm.
think of angelic frequency versus spirit, I would say a little higher. You know, um, so yeah, that's one of the things with that. I feel like I'm missing part of that question though. What was the rest in that question?
Would they, like if you connected in with a Palladian, would they be considered like part of like one of your spirit guides,
Oh,
or are
okay,
they?
yes, yes, there will be a star guide. They, yeah, so I get you. Now I get the question now. So yeah, so they will be your star guide. They would assist you in your continuous growth. You got to make sure you let them know. They got to say, "Hey, I want to be here. I want to continue to grow and connect," and that's what you let them know, and that's what starts to open up that energy for the every. Then you can continue. I find with Palladians, they stick around. They send different ones from time to time, depending on your growth. If you even if you're working with them continuously, with Arcturians, in my experience, has always been in a pair. It's always been a male and a female energy, or feminine energy, male energy, and they'll stick around as guides for a while. So sometimes three, 2 to 3 max, and they'll stick around. You might get other ones that may once a blue pop up because they're sent, but you'll have, as far as a guide is concerned, 2 to 3. So,
Okay.
uh,
Now, are certain ones better at guiding you in different types of life instances or situations?
yeah, I would say that. Well, I would say, as far as our, I mean, if I say Arcturians, I would give an idea. I would say that for cleansing, clearing space. I
Mhm.
It helped me. I know specifically what to say and say, hey, help clear this, and they will lower certain frequencies or certain lower energies within the space. And that goes into a whole nother, that's part of the class. If y'all want to know, you got to come check it out. But and then I find that I would say, for me, my star commander has helped me in cloaking whenever I needed not to be seen. If I felt like I needed just to kind of hide out and I'm in the public and I just want to go in and out, and whatever I was experiencing, especially if it's something that's negative, like if I feel like there's a lot of bad energies going around, I just want to get away, not get attached or get hit in some kind of way, I would say, okay, I'm going to call my star commander, my guide, my star being, whatever, and help me cloak. And I have seen, not only have I experienced and seen that I was cloaked and no one noticed me, but I've also had, and I may have to dig it and send it for our picture on our workshop coming up, showing that they did showed up in when I had requested them in the actual imagery. So that's also cool.
Right. I know you've shared pictures before of the ships up in the sky, especially after or leading up to classes or right after classes.
Yes, yes. Which I would like, to share with that one. The cloaking one is interesting. That one I'm going to pull out as well. I'm going to dig on that one too. So,
Okay. Yeah, Sandy thinks it would be really cool, a whole other dimension, especially in a past life.
yeah, it's true. And you can work on remembering. And this will help also to kind of trigger like those subconscious memories, because it's all in your soul essence, which is part of your cellular memory. So that we'll be able to bring that out, and that would bring those talents and those gifts and turn them on that you had in those lifetimes as a star being and activated in this lifetime. So that's part of that too.
Right. So if somebody is not, familiar with any of this, like what could they what knowledge would they gain in the class? What would be beneficial for them after?
And that's the one thing that it will be continuous work. After, if we're saying, well, if we're saying after, you're saying, right? So if we're talking about afterwards, I would say that the one of the things I want to, it's almost like giving them homework. This is what I want you guys to do, you know? So one of the things that they'll find is they'll start to notice, things changing it's almost like they go through a detox, those, because now you're bringing in higher frequencies through their energy. So you may have detox, which I would recommend drinking a lot of water so you can stay, flush and not dehydrate yourself. Also, they'll start to notice around them, like things in the sky that they'll be like, wait, that wasn't there before, and especially at nighttime, you might even get during the day, you might see like strange cloud formations that look like as if they're kind of cloaked, or they look almost like random disc looking, so it's almost like they'll start to experience that and see those things,
Mhm.
around, which I would recommend snap all the pictures you can, because then that's your evidence right there.
So Elizabeth was wondering if traveling to other dimensions would be able to assist in physical healing.
Absolutely. And there's one particular race, I'm gonna have to dig in my subconscious on that, that does help with that too, at the astral side of things. And I have seen also, it's, if you wanted to do it like someone that Reiki, for example, is another thing. If someone wanted to connect and do Reiki, or is a Reiki master already, or any kind of energetic person that wants to incorporate the star beings through their healing work, that will also be introduced and magnify their healings towards their clients or patients. So
Hmm.
yeah, you can do it in both ways and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I'm taking my time here. So, my time. Cheers to
There you go.
visiting.
What wine would you drink to call upon the Palladians?
There we go. All right, God. Okay, so I would say I would champagne actually would be what I would say.
Really? Okay.
Champagne. And if you can get something that's purple, that you can like put in. I know there's like certain liquidy purple things you can find, like in the alcohol section, and you can mix. I wouldn't go too crazy because I don't recommend getting like real, like get into that like party state, but something to relax. I would say that would be good for the Arcturians. I always say that for Palladians, I think they're like fruity things because they were also connected to Lemuria. They always had, Lemuria was the life where they had all these different giant fruits and nectars and all kinds of like just sweets and things like that. They were very loving kind of. So they anything fruity, yeah,
Okay.
Palladian right there, yeah.
You're rolling sweet wines or,
Yes.
oh, Kimberly's throwing out the suggestion of Chambord for that purple liquid.
I
Uh,
think that may be yeah, Chambord. I know there's one, and I'm gonna have to dig on it. It's like actually looks like a silvery purple kind
hmm.
of. It look when you put it into the champagne, and I think you even ask Bryce a specific drink. Now I'm gonna have to get you all the recipe, right? If not, you'll see it like a glittery. It looks like glitter floating in your drink. Yeah, so I might have to look that up.
I might even have to make a mixology book on just for mixing for Star Alliance.
Yeah, just like I'm baking cakes, we can mix that in. Oh, man. So,
That would be fun.
yeah, let's see here. Raspberry liqueur. I like that one too. Yeah, yeah, that would work too.
Is hypnotic? Is that one of the? I'm not familiar with hypnotic.
I know which that, yeah, that would be another one that can use. I would connect that more with the Syrians, so if anything, because the Syrians are very seductive. They're also connected with the Hathors, and if you think of Egypt and how they lived and with the fancy royal drinks and things like that, oh, absolutely, yeah. So,
I remember the first time learning that the Hathors was actually a whole separate race from you.
yes.
Was reading a book and they were talking about the Hathors came down and did some things, and I'm like, oh bullshit. And then I was like, can you believe what this book just said? And you were like, no, that's a race. And I'm like, well, damn. I have to go
Right,
back and like
right.
reconsider that chapter.
Yeah. Well, I think of more the Egyptian side of it, and it's a way, but they're kind of connected or intertwined. So I guess it's something more to like look into. Yeah, let's see who else we got.
Oh, Elizabeth says for a person who doesn't drink, she knows way too much about the alcohol.
Okay, wow. Pastries, huh?
Yes.
Also,
So
yeah,
yeah, we'll recap real quick for everybody. So we have the StarSeed Alliance class with Ernesto over Zoom on the 10th, which is a Saturday at 6:15. Just because of COVID, right now we're keeping it to Zoom, but we
yeah,
have done these classes in person, in class or in the store, I should say. And Ernesto's come out and we've thrown open the back door and let everybody go outside and do the work, under the stars um, and hopefully we'll be able to do that soon in person again.
yeah.
Um,
I'm trying to adjust here to the camera. So
so
yeah,
it's like a 2 hour class you got ready for us for Sunday,
yeah.
next Saturday on the 10th. But feel free, guys, ask questions. Anything to do with the Star Alliance. It's funny because on some of the TV shows that reference some of these beings, they never say Star Alliance and they never say Star Commanders so my personal question would be like, why do you think certain terminologies get used in like certain sections or certain groups of people?
You know, I'm not sure how everybody goes about it in their way, but I've always like I know that Star Alliance has been used a little bit out there.
Mhm.
Um, I never really paid attention too much, but I know that for me, since when we say star seed, because a lot of people don't understand what I mean. Star seed means you're seeded within. You got a star within your DNA. So you're connecting with those star beings that are connected. So that's why, I mean, I'm not saying I coined it, but I did kind of coin it a little bit. I call it to combine the words together. So, so that's why I call it the Star Seed Alliance. But it's all the same stuff. It's just, for some people it resonates another way than, in their terminology than, how I would say it. So, but I find that it kind of covers all, you say Star Alliance, all, because they're all really aligned. Those that are connected, I mean, I'm not going to say that if we had 1,000 races out there, it doesn't mean that they all know each other. There may be only 300 that know each other, or maybe more. Who knows? But that's just the
Mhm.
idea, of what I'm saying. They're aligned. Their alliance are together. So those that are connected. So that's how they're, that's why I call it that way. So let's see here.
So Kathy and Sandy have a pretty similar question. I'll show Kathy's first. It says, "Are all humans descended from star seeds?" And
I
Sandy, do we all have a star seed?
I'd say yes. I believe most of us, for the majority, I would say yes. I'm not, and I'm not saying that when I say that, it doesn't mean that others aren't per se. But I find that a lot of us have more than others, and we may even have more than one. When we say seeded, we may have three, etheric strands that are star related within our being. So I say yes, and that's where we talk about the junk DNA of the 12 strands, and there's only so many that we're aware of in our in our terminology of what we know medically. But the junk DNA is also star DNA, so that's not really junk DNA. I call it golden DNA. So if those starts to activate from etheric to the physical, then you will turn on those other parts of the self, within you, which is those star fragments, that are part of your soul and your physical being. So you will have it through your genetics and through your soul matrix, which will be your spiritual side of yourself, which is where past life stuff comes in again. So yeah.
Okay. Uncle
So
Joe.
So you're multitasking. You're multi, dimensional, working with yourself. You may be turning on a physical. You may have a heritage site, a lot of like the Hopi Indians and other native, have connected with the star beings. So they may have some of that star genetic already in them, but they may also have another part they're not aware of, or may be aware of, that is not genetic but is on a soul level because they've connected with it in that aspect. That goes the same for us. We all may have a mixture of things going on. So,
Right. Well, ever since taking your class, I always joke that I'm one of the, I call them the cat people because I'm like, look, I'm leopard print.
yeah, yeah, the cats. Yep, I
Yep.
love
I
them.
always have a fat black cat one with me. Um, so let's see. We've got any more questions coming in. We've got plenty of time for more question, guys. If anybody wants to know anything about the StarSeed Alliance or any of the particular races that you heard Ernesto speak of, or if you've heard of a certain race. I think we hear a lot about like the reptilians, and come to find out, like there's the what do they call them? The Dracos or the dragons.
Yes, yes.
And I keep hearing like how they're fighting for humanity to take over, and some of that I'm like, this sounds like a bad Marvel comic.
Yeah.
you know?
Makes you wonder where some of those stories do come from in some ways, but that's another subject. But I like the whole a vampire kind of stuff. I think it's kind of cool, but there I don't like the vampire sense, like attack or kill or control. I look at it more in the movies, the fun stuff. So when it comes to like the draconians, if they're underneath the layer of being on Earth, because we do have, at least we could call it conspiracy or we could call it possibilities. Maybe there's truth, maybe there isn't, but I'm not going to confirm that. Um, what I will say is that if there are beings that are in control or trying to control, they would be also here on Earth. They're not just floating around in the skies. And if anything, I think the skies are being more protected by higher starships beings than negative. So they have to have already entered our planet for quite some time and are hidden probably, who knows, in tunnels. Well, I don't know. So, or maybe in some homes, you know. So, it's possible. Yeah. But that's why we work with the positive ones to help counteract if there is stuff like that. Then you can like keep those kind of vibrations out. That's something I'll be teaching, because at least I'm going to say what I have ward off as far as lower star beings. I never looked at it physically, like, okay, that being's over there is going to attack me, and it's in the flesh. No, more etherically, like how you would see, like, if there's something demonic or a spirit that's earthbound and you're trying to get rid of it and won't leave.
Mhm.
I'll start being to remove any kind of lower ET vibration if it was in my premises, So, but in an etheric sense, in a spiritual sense, you know.
So maybe a random off the wall question, since you just mentioned, lowers and
Yeah.
demonic. How many of the archangels might be actual aliens, like some of the races that we hear about, Palladians, Assyrians? Because when you read the descriptions on some of these archangels, they don't look like Fabio.
Right. Well, that's true, and you even find that there are similarities with certain star beings and angels, like you said. So I would think that, well, I've always felt that Arcturians are very connected to the angelic energy. So if anything, I would think that there's a connection there, maybe with certain archangels, in a way. Um, may even be one and the same with a specific Arcturian. There could be a specific archangel, and it's just the same kind of how like some ascended masters they say Hermes is also Toph, but also Merlin, all in one. So
Right.
there may be some of that. So that's why when we look at the flip side of things, when we look at the positive side of certain things, you can say, okay, well, I shouldn't feel so unsafe, especially if you're like more into angels, you're afraid to get into star. You look up and say, oh, this one is kind of relation to the same or one and the same in some kind of way. So you can't go wrong with it.
Mhm. So Kathy was wondering, do we ever return to those other dimensions, whether in astral travel or after passing from this life? So,
Astro,
mhm.
no question. Astral travel, yes. Yeah, definitely. You can even do it in your astral dream time. If you very strong remote viewer, you can do it during the day and meditation. On a level of passing, we're all known to hear that we're going to, go into the light, the rainbow bridge, connect to the other side, your loved ones, and all of that. I do believe that you do have the capability when you cross to then make that conscious choice after your healing. That is, if you really didn't work out what you thought you needed to here on earth, like unfinished business, you would have to work with that first. But then after that, you would then go to um, you could, I don't know if it's a request, but you'll have the right to travel into other dimensions in the star, realms. And I know that if I leave this physical world, I better damn be able to travel across the other star portals and so on. If that's the case, yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Right. I would think if you could get there through a meditation, you should be able to get there like after you're not so trapped.
Yeah. And that's the whole point of this is when we open up the energy, you open yourself up to connect more, and you're going to be able to do that. I want people to be able to like zoom in and work on that, so, and everybody has their gifts to be able to figure that out. Let's see what else we got.
All right. So Kimberly wants to know if those dimensions could be interchangeable or are they just the same? Or I think she's meaning the dimensions as you're traveling. So I guess maybe the different planets or dimensions that these different beings, like, are they, do the Pleiadians exist in the same dimension as the Assyrians or
um that's a yes and no question. That's why, because they work simultaneously. They can go back and forth to each other's dimensions. So to make it maybe more clear, with archangels, same, yes. That they can connect if they're separate from the archangels and not one with the same, they can still connect. And I'll put it this way to make it a little bit more easier to understand. Um, if we think of, let's say, a commandership, a star commandership, which would be like mine's is my favorite is Ashtar. So within that ship, there's many light beings from different planes of existence and dimensions. So they all work together as a group conscious to help, let's say, Earth and its people to evolve and whatnot. So they're all from different dimensions, but they're all within the same vessel, within the same ship. So they can work, correlate together to, help others, and still be able to go within each other's realms, if you want to call it that. Yeah.
awesome. I've often wondered that since one of the last classes. I'm like, are those angels really, the tall Palladians or the little blue Assyrians?
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
so Colleen was wondering if you could recommend any really good books on this subject to, keep learning and keep studying on.
I would say there is, there's the Pleiadians. There's one I believe is Pleiadian Agenda, and it's by a lady named Elmoria. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm not lying. Elmora Quanya. She's good. She gives exercises, but I find for me one of the good ones. There's an Arcturian book. It's called. I think it's just specifically called "Connecting with the Arcturians." And that kind of saved me actually that book, and I think that's what helped me to open up my tuning in to be able to teach my star classes too because they elevated me, and then I started getting all this information that I'm like, oh, I could do this too, and so I started writing stuff down, and as I was getting my tuning in from that book, because that book is more of an activation, if anything. It's not really a too much of an explanatory, but it gives you pieces, and so that kind of helped me to boot up my abilities even more to be able to use that for myself before
Mhm.
I telling everybody else. I was like, let me tune. Now that I got this information, let me see how it works on me. Every time I had a download, and then once I did that, then I would start, putting it out there in workshops. So you see how that goes. So if I can expand and open up, this is what I have to offer when you take this workshop. I'll be able to help you guys to expand and tune in so that you guys can do your work and don't need to have me all the time.
Now, if most it hasn't had a workshop with you,
Has a
um,
sorry, for some reason I cut off
yeah, there's a little bit of an echo going.
a
Uh,
lag. Yeah.
if somebody hasn't had a workshop with you, they may not be familiar with you being able to speak light language, and that's something right from being able to connect with them. Uh,
Yes, yes.
so might people after taking the class, if they find that maybe we should back up, like what is light language? And should somebody be concerned if they feel like all of a sudden they want to start speaking it?
Okay, so light language, and this I'm glad you brought this up because it was something I was gonna bring up and it went whoop, right over my head. So, um, light language is considered what they call a universal language of light, and I've spoken about this many times. Where when you think of yourself as a child, or you hear babies like talking gibberish, this is the soul language, the language of the divine. You think they're just talking yappy stuff, but no, it's really activation. That's why when you're around the babies and you hear them talk and you feel their essence, you just feel this love and openness, the innocence, all of that, the divine. That's all what that's about. So we have that within ourselves. And so when you start to connect, and the thing is like, light language activates things within our DNA, our chakras, our soul matrix, our subconscious mind, our brain waves, our pineal gland. I mean, we could go on. So all these different things, when when you hear the words there, the universal language of light is basically many languages in one, which is from all across the universe. Is the divine language. So you may have a Palladian, you may be more resonant to speak Palladian or Arcturian, and they all have different sounds, like keys. You think of pianos and the keys and the different tones and the combination of tones and how that tunes in those frequencies in music. That's what light language is with words. And so when you hear that, if there's something that's dormant and you hear those specific vibrational words, then it turns on and activates what's been shut down that's for a long time. And that's what
Mhm.
is part of what we do. Like Palladian could be, as an example, something very small. I can do it at work because I'm already used to it. And so if something's Palladian will be for me, it's more lighter where I could say like which is meaning I can interpret, which is, I love you and I welcome you in. And so not everybody can interpret like, and again, I don't even know what I just said is basically something that just came through. So it's not like I have a textbook. I can say, oh, this word was this word was no. It just it's an intellectual thing that activates between both sides of the brain. So that hearing that, you guys might have opened something up for you. You might not sense it right away, but this will help open them up to speak. At some point, the more you hear the light language, the more you start to open up, and you'll start speaking and you'll activate certain things. In the beginning, light language, I could speak it, didn't understand what I was saying. Now that I speak it, I'll catch certain words. I'll be like, okay, I don't know why. I know this means this, but in other words, I might have missed, but I know it's something that turned on. So it just depends on the moment and the frequency and how it's flowing, you know.
Mhm.
Like I said, I never knew how to interpret it. It just, that took time. But if I wanted to say something more accurate, it's more quicker. So I would be like, which is right now only caught half of it, which really I was talking about activating telepathy vibrations to people. So to be aware, to be awake. That's what. And the rest I didn't catch. But your subconscious caught it by listening to what I just said. So that's all in there, and that's part of what will happen. And so then when we talked about earlier the workshop, if someone what they expect after, that may actually start doing that. And that may open up their energy. And that is a high vibration. It's a high pitch energy. So that will clear stuff within your space. So
Okay.
yes, like speaking in tongues, exactly. Just the same. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, Kimberly was asking if it's like speaking in tongues.
Yes, and that's the same. Another part of the universal language. Our it could be Hebrew. It could in the Aramaic old language. It could be something that would be more angelic. So it just depends on what's coming through. So.
Mhm. I mean, I've heard you speak it a few times, and it's always so
Yes.
unique and different. Um,
Yes.
and if paying attention, like to see the change that actually comes over you when it's more than just like a sentence or two, like there's an energetic change even to your aura, around you as you're doing it. So it's kind of a cool thing to just stand back and watch happen.
Yeah.
That's the thing with watching the class. Um,
Yeah. And I'll tell you, if they want to hear, I'd say, I had one we're gonna ask about that dragon fate in a minute there. I had for when I first did when they opened, mine was Syrian, and that was real rapid. And I was like, whoa. And I was living in Los Angeles. And I remember I had lots of going on at that time in my whole house that it felt I was saging like a crazy man. I mean, I was like trying to clear stuff. And I remember when I did that, the whole house shifted. I mean, it almost felt as if a mini earthquake happened, but it didn't. And it was like the whole house went silence, and I just felt such a cleanse. So that's something that, again, with intention, you might say, I want to clear, and you can use that as your smudging, even though it was a smudging that day for that. And it will clear that energy in your space, whatever that is. And if you might recognize what you're speaking, you might not. You may say, I don't know if this is Palladian or Turian or. But in time, know, you'll build that. So, what is the question about the Fae here?
Karen was wanting to know, what do you know about the dragon fae? And I'm not sure if that maybe was tying into when we talked about the Draco race, and the reptilians, or could the dragon fae, really them being maybe of the fae, are they more, alien,
Uh,
species?
I mean, I haven't. I mean, the dragon fate to me has always been something that would be more in the earth elemental kind of energy. So I don't
Mhm.
know if I would really associate that with the stars. I mean, I do know there are, at least from my visions, there are butterfly star beings. So I mean, it's possible, that there is just like mantis. There's a few mantis beings out there in the I don't know.
And they're huge, at least the ones I saw. That was not fun.
Yeah, oh, that's right. We talked about that. But if I think of like Dragon Fate, I mean, I wish I could answer that, but I don't. I have to really meditate, do my research on that one because I never correlate those together. But I do know there are butterfly beings that are And I don't look at them as like this. I'm talking about maybe even our size, you
Hmm.
know. So yeah, yeah. So
Well, and
that
maybe
will
I
be
should
the day for all
clarify.
of us to see them all.
And maybe I should clarify. When I said it wasn't fun seeing the praying mantis being, it wasn't because it was threatening. It was just, it was probably like a 7, 8 foot being, and it just appeared right in front of my car as I was driving on Lorraine Road. So that's what made it not fun, to have that happen while driving. So that being, because actually that's supposed to be a pretty peaceful race, right? The praying mantis. Uh,
Yeah, they're supposed to be peaceful. They don't really want to be bothered, actually, for the most part. So coming through, they feel like we're intervening or messing with their space in a sense, So yeah, I see two people said I should get a podcast. Well, y'all help me how to get that started, and maybe that I may continue the audience.
you know, well, technically, Goddess Elite has one. I just have to add more to it. So maybe we should take a sub, Ernesto.
Yes, yes,
I'm sure we can talk for hours on things and answer questions, and
yes.
um, we'll have to call it like wine and aliens or something, you know. So we've probably got about 10 minutes left. So if anybody has any more questions about, the Star Alliance beings, how it might work, what to expect in the class, um, I know Ernesto, you kind of covered already kind of how you got started in it, but if
Yeah,
you have any questions about Ernesto himself and how he, uses these beings in his work, feel free to ask in the comments. He'll answer you live. And if you catch this on the replay, I'm sure there will be more information and videos coming, because now that you have your YouTube channel up going, um,
yeah.
you mentioned you want to put some more out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, are they? While we're waiting, now since we have two full moons this month, do you find that maybe sometimes the visitations kind of are they astrologically or lunarly like affected at all in timing, or our perception of them is maybe greater? Uh,
Absolutely. But okay, there's two things. Full. I mean, they love working with the lunar energies. I'll tell you this. So if I say, let me go back to solar for a minute. Solar, I find that especially while we've been having all these solar flares. These are when the portals that are opening for their sun, they directs us directly to a portal to Palladius. That's why it's almost like a wormhole. That's why they can get through to see us. So they are actually coming through the sun to get to us. When they're coming from that side. Not that we don't have any already around our planet, outside of it, the outskirts of it, but if they're traveling from their light years away of long far distance, they're here in the quickness through our sun. Our sun is actually a portal that leads us to their sun out there. Now moon, they I find that they like to be for rituals and working on stuff like that. They respect the moon and they respect land, like Mother Earth. Planetary places that have a crystal core that is active, like ours. But I also will say this: new moons I find to be more fascinating
huh.
because when you invite them during a dark phase and a dark moon, you don't really see much. Everything seems darker outside, and that's when you see the ships appear. They're more visible to see in our sky at night than if we had a full moon.
Well, that kind of makes sense. It's less
Uh-huh.
light, going on. Uh,
Yes.
so Kathy wants to know the name of your YouTube channel, which is what, the Oracle Eye.
The Oracle Eye, yes.
Hmm.
You'll see my eye in it.
And so Kimberly was wanting to know how did this happen for you, given you have many layers of guidance. So maybe like what made you in the very beginning, like go, oh, I should look into these things.
Well, when I don't know if she missed the beginning part, but in the beginning, I had my experience connecting with my own star guide, and it was kind of like, oh, cool, dismissed. When I had him appear many years later, the way that happened was through an astral dream, and I woke up from that dream because it was very intense, and it was a sit down in this. It was very futuristic looking. It was a glass table, glass chair. It was very interesting, and I was sitting there up front, and I was being guided and explained if I was ready to open up and establish some kind of a contract. I guess I had some kind of a contract. And so through that, I woke up, and when I looked out the window, I could see a light ship. And it wasn't like just, oh, a little light floating. It was, I could see the actual imagery, like the actual disc. It was nighttime. It was dark, but there was still light, in the street poles, lights. And I remember seeing it. This was in the West Coast. And when I looked, I was like, oh my God, what's that? And the dog started barking, looking up at the same thing, and then it just zoomed right up. So that was my experience in saying, okay, I need to look more into this. That was how it started. Although I will say that when I had that experience of seeing the light ship, I had already started working the Palladians years prior, off and on. It wasn't like a consistent. I didn't ever put any correlation with my star commander with that until way after. That was just because that's what I discovered. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, so that was how I went down. So that's helped me to then say, I want to work on this and I want to be able to show others so they could see, for themselves as well. So that's part of my contract.
Fun. I know the first time when you mentioned it in the store, I was kind of like, what?
Yeah,
So
like I'm a loony.
I know it's all fun shenanigans. What-
Hey, I didn't even believe it myself. I'm like, did I really see that? What made it so was because Pepper was barking and he was looking too. So I was like, he was looking right up. So that made it okay. I'm not the only one here.
Right. The dog's crazy too.
Yeah, the dog is nuts. Yeah, so.
No, Pepper's
Oh,
adorable. He's not nuts. He's adorable.
man.
Um, Kimberly had another question asking if the slits in the sky are opening star seeds.
Yes, they that's their way of coming in too. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I believe. Yeah. You might see them just kind of coming through in that way. And in some cases, and that's something that's been kind of been spoken about, has also been out in the ocean too. Like has been that, and I think that's just an Atlantean thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
I see what you said, Elizabeth. Yeah, and that's okay too.
who doesn't talk to their, well, Elizabeth does more of a pet communication. I was going to say, who doesn't talk to their cats? Like, the cat butt sitting behind me here. All right. Well, we've got just a little over 2 minutes. So, Ernesto, your class coming up on the 10th at
Yes,
6:15. So,
6:15 p.m.
yeah. So
Yes,
in the evening over Zoom, just because of COVID, but we do, really enjoy having Ernesto come in and teach it in person.
and
Uh,
we will at some point. Don't worry, guys.
but the Zoom class are just as effective. So when he's doing the channeling and leading the meditation, like you can still feel that, even though it would be over Zoom.
Yes.
Because I know, like, I've come home at night and repeated some of the meditations that you've, told us to do. And sometimes, like, later on, like, to repeat that away from the classes was more profound, like the
Yeah.
connection. you
Yeah,
know?
because sometimes people feel like, oh, there was too many people, the energy, and then when they try it themselves, it's like boom. And then some others they just feel it immediately, and it's just everyone's different, so I get it. I get it.
Right. So Kathy wants to know about the ships that people see coming up from the ocean. What starseed beings might those be that come up out of the ocean?
Honestly, I still haven't even got that far into tune into them because I'm too busy with the ones in the skies. But I will say that I do believe there's a correlation or a connection to the Atlanteans. And so, the Atlanteans, from my knowledge, at least, or what we've learned and studied over some history, or hidden history, is that
Mhm.
a lot of them did connect it with the Pleiadians, the Syrians, and not sure about the Eritreans. They might have. I would think they have, but those were some of those two were the main ones. So I would think that there may be a correlation to that or a connection to that in some kind of way, between those beings.
Now,
And
do you think those would be kind of like the similar beings that, like some of the native tribes talk about, like the ant people down in the ground, or do you think they're kind of like similar yet different, or you know?
it could be. It could. There might be something like that too, And when we think of ant people, if we just supersize it, what would they look like? They would look like little gray alien beings, So I would think that maybe there's some of the
Mhm.
gray betas, maybe again, like I said, not all of them are bad, There are some beings that are here to learn from us as we're learning from them.
Mhm.
So when we think of, oh, are we being like experiment? Not necessarily. I mean, that's a whole nother ball game if you want to really go into that ideology. But on the more positive spiritual level, I feel that there are some beings that are in between, like almost like 4D here on Earth, and are
Mhm.
in station around our planet, even in mountains, and are observing us to learn and understand us, and would be willing to open up with us to connect with us, like the inner beings of inner earth, but we're not ready, or they may feel like they're not ready because they don't know, they may have an idea of how we would react if we did see a mass of that, which is why we all got to start working on these things and getting over it, because if we're all part of creation, then will be much quicker for all of us to just unite, and who knows what we can learn from them on the physical level down the road, and maybe for healing remedies and all kinds of things, that we can do. We can teach them things, and maybe they're open to. I think that our human the human race, I think, is what star beings do, are attracted to us, and not that they don't have humor, because some of them do. But I think that's the biggest thing that they find with us is our way of our way of life, music, laughter, all the craziness that we all have to offer. I think they're attracted to that because they want to understand and be maybe part of that. But we have to like get over our fears, so that we could. That's a way of inviting them, in a more physical level, So that's that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
So anything else? Did we miss anything?
sarcasm's been a
Sarcasm's been a
uniting
unite.
feature. Um, well, I think we're out of questions. So if
All
there's
right.
anything that you would like to, throw out there, to end our discussion here, um, we can wrap it up, and unless you have some more things you want to keep talking or more questions come on, I can leave it up to you guys.
Well, I do have to get my rest, so I didn't want to come on the ship tonight. But I'm gonna say no. Seriously, guys, if you guys are really interested, in opening up, connecting, and really understanding yourself, because this is not just like, oh, let's just connect with them. It's to understand yourself, but also using that in combination to evolve, accelerate, expand. And through that, you'll be able to use your gifts in other ways. So, especially metaphysical people that, work with healing or other types of modalities that help, shape our world and assist, serve others, this can be added to your growth and help you expand that so that you can be able to accelerate and do more. So it's just another aspect modality that you could use in combination. So, I hope to see y'all there.
All right. Well,
Let me help tune you guys in.
put another tool in your tool belt.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us. One last time, Ernesto's class is on the 10th at 6:15. You can find that information either on Ernesto's email list or on our website. But here is the site that you can go join. But and your YouTube is the Oracle Eye. So if you
Yes.
would like to subscribe to your channel so they get notified when you put up some more videos, please go support Ernesto. Go subscribe. I can't talk. Subscribe.
Subscribe. It's all
Subscribe. But with that, everybody, thanks for joining us. This was fun. It was an interesting topic, I think, and maybe
yeah,
we should consider, doing that again. And
absolutely.
all
Yes.
right,
For
all
our
right,
next one. Okay.
all right,
All right.
everybody, have a great night.
Bye bye, everyone.